Fair enough. Fair enough. We've talked about in our past interviews, in a broad sense, about people who fabricate, exaggerate, bullshit stories for attention. I want to narrow it down to here, though, when it just comes to Somalia. Why do you think there seems to be this unique trend of people who try to claim they were in Somalia? And what would your message be to people? And I know you have a cool kind of tidbit here for this. What would your message be to people who want to fake the "I was in Black Hawk Down" shtick?
Well, I'm not here to be the person that calls people out for stolen valor or any of that. I've experienced a ton of it, and the little tidbit, you can show a picture of it here. But I have the unit award orders that show every single person who was there, to include the dates that they were there, regimental headquarters people that were there, headquarters company people that were there, A company guys that came after the fact, all of that. So I get hit up, easily once a week, once every 2 weeks by, hey, have you ever heard of? And I think one of the things that people don't understand is, this is like 100 people, 110 guys. I don't even know the exact number. Um, for years, we stood in formation. And when you get ready to go jump, which we did a lot of, the first sergeant's up there calling the manifest. And Thomas, Brad with the last 4 year social, and then you go move to the next formation. And you hear these names over and over again. Afterwards, years later, you're hearing stories about, oh, this guy was a private in my squad and he was there for only like 8 months, but he got kicked out for such and such. And you've heard all the names, you've heard all the stories, you've heard all these kinds of, pieces of information. So when a name comes at you, even though he may not have been in my company and may have come in Alpha Company 3 days after the battle, the name just doesn't ring a bell and it stands out almost immediately. So I can look at the orders and see who was there, when they were there, whether they were not there. Um, the bigger point to me is I don't feel like stolen valor is something that people intend to do. I think that they avoid answering a direct question by, oh, you were in the army in the 90s? Did you go to the Gulf War? And it's like, it's almost shameful to say, no, I didn't. Right? So it's weird when you're in the service, there's like a shame. Well, oh, you were in the Rangers? Did you go to Ranger school? No, I got kicked out before that. Like they don't want to answer something. And so I feel like there's a lot of, yeah, yeah, I did. And they're not trying to say, I got a Congressional Medal of Honor and I'm the star of Black Hawk Down and everything else. I think it's they answer in a way because they're ashamed to answer truthfully. And so I don't know where that shame comes from. Like I went to every military school there is to offer. I was as decked out, awards, you name it, badges, patches, all kinds of stuff. And I never got to scuba school. The one school that I wanted to get to, I didn't get to. If someone came to me and said, oh, you were in the recon detachment of the Rangers, those were scuba slots. And I'm like, no, I didn't get there. And I feel like a turd because I didn't get to go, you know? So even though I've got all this other stuff, there's still something there. What is that? I don't know what that is. So I feel like I'm not giving anyone who embellishes or anyone who uses ambiguity to hide, and there are a lot of those guys out there. Um, I'm not giving them a pass. I'm just saying that I think that the reason that they've done what they've done or said or embellished or exaggerated or whatever it might be is more out of, I don't want to say no. I don't want to say that I wasn't. And then it kind of grows. Oh, you were there? Then you must, have done this. Well, now I'm in the trap. Yeah, I was,
Right.
and I think that's kind of what happens. But anyway.
Well, one of the things that I think is most interesting on this topic, and that was a really good answer with, talking about ambiguity, not wanting to answer direct questions, is when I first started doing this, I'll just be honest with you, people could tell me anything. And because I was never in the military, I had no idea what like a red flag, like you were talking about kill counts. It's like if some guy said something, you're like, oh man, that's nuts. Like that's crazy because I was an idiot, for lack of a better term. And that's just the truth of the matter. Until I interviewed one of your old teammates where you went later in your life. And he made what I think is the best comment I've ever heard. He said, I see all these guys do interviews and they're killing 30, 40 people a night. And they're apparently responsible for thousands of KIAs. And he's like, if you have to shoot people every night you do your job, you must be really shitty at your job. And I was like, wow, I'd never thought of it that way at
Yeah.
all. And then it like kind of does make sense. And you're like, okay, well, I need to do a better job of vetting who I
Yeah.
interview and stuff. But I think that's a really good answer. I think the orders thing is really neat. That's really cool. Um, that is also a perfect segue into a topic you are going to have a unique perspective on because you've been on both sides of the aisle in the sense of you've been at a place where you don't really talk about what you do,
Mhm.
and you were an Army Ranger where you're very comfortable talking about what you did. Where should that line be drawn, in your opinion, of it's okay to talk about this stuff over here, but you really shouldn't be discussing this stuff over here?
In special mission units, they're very cut and dry with here are the things that are okay to talk about, here are the things that are not okay to talk about. Everybody has their own sort of metric for what they think is okay. And so even though the unit might say it's okay to talk about this or this, some people think that's wrong. And it's all, a matter of perspective and personal, preference in terms of what they're willing to say or not willing to say. Um, I don't, I'm not going to criticize someone who maybe talks about things that they shouldn't. Maybe there's a reason they're doing what they're doing. And I'm not here to judge people or say that they're horrible for doing something or anything like that. For me, Mogadishu was a safe thing to talk about. It was something that I feel like is a best representative of me being public, which had nothing to do with talking about war. The only reason I became public and tried to let people know was to say, I've been there too. And I don't want to show something of myself and let there be ambiguity. So I kind of came out and was like, hey, check it out. Here's who I am. Here's what I did. I've lived through the worst of it just like everyone else. And if I can do this, if I can figure out a way to be creative, give back to the community, have a sense of purpose, stay plugged in with, the brotherhood and the tribe and everything, if I can do that, you can do it too.